Today I'm going to attempt to answer another question no one asked. Can you beat Fable Anniversary without moving the camera? See, normally when you play Fable, the game will automatically move the camera for you. However, I found a way to stop this from happening altogether. See, the logical thing to do when doing a no camera run is to use a gamepad and then disable the right control stick. What I quickly learned is that when you use a gamepad, this is when the game will actually move the camera on its own. There's also some very significant differences in the on-screen heads-up display depending on whether you're using a mouse and keyboard or a controller. What I also learned is that when you use a mouse and keyboard, the game will not move the camera of its own accord. Of course, then you still have the problem of accidentally knocking the mouse, which is why a controller is preferable. So in order to actually make this work, I had to disconnect my mouse. This left me with a lot of problems when navigating the game menus. My solution to this was to work on a hybrid system of keyboard and Xbox controller. Simply put, I left my Xbox controller plugged in and disabled the right joystick, giving me no access to camera movement, and then had to reassign or unassign any keyboard controls that related to moving the camera. And when you use a mouse and keyboard on Fable, the mouse is normally the attack button as well, therefore I had to reassign them onto keyboard keys. Also, if you're thinking that having an Xbox controller plugged in might somehow still affect gameplay, it doesn't. This is because you're presented with an in-game option to actually choose whether you're using mouse and keyboard or a controller, as well as a Fable 2 layout. So, everyone clear and happy with everything I've just said? No? Great, let's do this. So my journey down this path of insanity begins in the idyllic town of Oakvale. We're presented with a very basic tutorial of heading around the town performing good deeds in order to get some gold to buy a birthday present for our sister. And immediately I was hit with my very first obstacle. You see, I would need the mouse plugged in order to progress. This sent me into a blind panic of key mashing because I just spent 4 hours trying to set up what I thought was a good system.
God fucking damn it!
Eventually, I was able to figure out that I could just use tab to progress with the dialogue. I did a little bit of experimenting to make sure that the camera still wouldn't turn of its own accord. So the camera appears to wobble ever so slightly when moving forward and then turning left or right, as well as moving over certain terrain types. Now, I'm not sure if this is just an illusion or this is actually happening, but what I do know is that my camera angle does not actually change. A good example of this would be when I'm using the bow and I walk into objects. The camera appears to wobble, but once I take aim to fire, I will always be aiming in the same direction. And if this is indeed an animation mechanic that I can somehow take advantage of, all the better. Right, where were we? Ah yes, man cheating on his wife behind a house. So I've run into yet another problem. You see, now I've learned I can use tab instead of the left mouse button. Unfortunately, this will always select yes as an option. And since I don't actually know how to say no to people, for the rest of this run, I'm going to be saying yes to everyone all the time. The result of this is it's going to end up in me making some rather questionable choices.
Right, got you, you little ruffian! Stop right there, criminal scum!
So the guard catching me here is actually helpful because talking to me will change my angle. Another problem I had was that I disabled the ability to lock onto enemies as I felt like this was moving the camera. Now this leaves me in a position where there's certain things I'm no longer going to be able to do, such as helping this young boy with his bully problem. This could potentially make the game unplayable later on. However, for now I only need 3 gold pieces to buy some chocolates for my sister, so in this situation I don't actually have to help him. If I did, then that would be a run ender straight away.
It just so happens that I have a rather nice box of sweets here.
I'm in danger!
So after talking to the merchant and buying the sweets, that put me at a really awkward camera angle. From the centre of town I was able to navigate my way up to Teresa using only the mini-map. Unfortunately, after I'd given Teresa her birthday presents, bandits attacked Oakvale. Luckily, bandits can't see through picket fences, and so I was able to hide with relative safety. After I'd located my father, I was rescued from certain death by a strange magic man. He took me to the Heroes Guild where I would begin my training to become a hero. So after being woken up by Whisper, we made it down to the map room. From here I would have to make my way to find the Guildmaster. Now with this camera angle it's not really too difficult because you can just use your minimap. However, I did get caught in the geometry quite a bit. Now this will kind of make the camera freak out a little bit as you smash yourself into objects, but to be honest, I'm planning on using this to my advantage if I can. After hitting a straw dummy with a stick, I was sent into the woods to clear out some beetles. This would give me my first taste of combat without moving the camera. Now to be fair, this fight is designed to be extremely easy, however, I can't see all of the beetles and so I'll have to move around until they're in my line of view. The important thing to note here is that the white triangle in my minimap does not change direction. See, I was hoping to use the combat mechanic or terrain to somehow alter my line of view, but it just wobbles and then snaps back into place. Jumping into the future, I was now grown up and had to once again meet the Guildmaster to begin my actual training. I had a little bit of trouble initially getting out of this room before eventually making it down to the Guildmaster to begin my proper training. After beating the hell out of Whisper, it was time to begin my archery training, and this created yet another problem. See, after talking to the Guildmaster, this is the angle that I was given. Initially I didn't think this would be too much of an issue because I could hopefully just shoot to the side, but upon pulling back your bowstring, you will always aim in the direction that your camera is facing. My solution to this was to shoot the Guildmaster repeatedly until I got sent to Maze's office. You see, you will automatically be sent to speak to Maze, and after the cutscene you will be facing a different direction. From here I slowly worked my way back to the archery range where I found I was now at an acceptable angle at least to hit 2 of the dummies. Unfortunately however, I did not have the angle necessary to hit the dummy at the back. I spent a considerable amount of time trying this, it even turned to night, that's how long I was at this. Then I remembered that there is an NPC you can talk to who will offer you additional blade training. Thankfully however, he will not let you start the blade training until you've completed the quests for the Guildmaster. This allowed me to repeatedly talk to him until I had the necessary angle to shoot the last dummy. I then had to go back and speak to the apprentice trainer again to change my angle so that I was able to actually hit some of the moving dummies. Without the ability to aim or lock on, this is extremely frustrating, however I think I did just enough to pass his test. My last task was to learn the ways of will, which created yet another problem. You see, in order to use will powers, the game wanted me to use my mouse, which I don't have plugged in, so I can't do this. Eventually, however, I was able to come up with a solution in that I can actually hotkey spells onto my keyboard. And with that, all I had to do now was hit as many of the straw dummies as I could as quick as I could. It did involve a lot of running back and forward, but I seemed to do enough to make the Guildmaster happy at least. Also, you may have just noticed that the camera angle actually moved when I struck the dummy with lightning. So I didn't actually notice this at the time, it was only after I'd completed my final test against Maze that I actually noticed that lightning changes your camera angle. Now, technically speaking, this should have been allowed, but it was an unexpected development that I wasn't really happy with. So I had to reload and do all of the training again. Thankfully this time, however, I had an idea of how to do this a bit more successfully. Maze was actually behind me, but I didn't have too much trouble hitting him with my sword. He would, however, need to be directly in front of me in order for me to hit him with my bow. My number one concern here was hitting him with lightning without the camera moving, but I managed to pull this off as well, just by standing in front of him. And with my final training now complete, it was time for me to take my guild seal and venture forth as a hero. So upon passing final training, the first thing I'm required to do is spend some experience points. So I decided to take the first point of physique because I want my melee attacks to be stronger. Doing more damage will get me more experience so I can level up faster. So to be totally honest here, because this is indeed a third-person game, moving around isn't really the issue here. The biggest problem I'm going to have is with combat. So my first real quest in this game was to deal with the Wasp Queen that had invaded the picnic area. And I'm kind of stuck facing the same way until the next cutscene appears in which the Wasp Queen spawns more broods. I don't think that's the right word. I don't know what wasps are. Either way, lightning was completely out of the question and I didn't think I'd be able to hit with my bow, so I had to get up close and personal. I just kind of stood there swinging my sword like a maniac and hoping for the best. The Wasp Queen died pretty easily, but it's the first quest, so this is to be expected. I think I'm going to get absolutely f***ing destroyed in the arena. I managed to make my way to Bowerstone, although I did walk into the occasional wall. Once I entered Bowerstone, Maze informed me that my sister may yet still be alive. This could come in useful should I ever need a kidney, but otherwise irrelevant. I then used the colour skate in Bowerstone to teleport back to the guild, where I had an important choice to make. Do I attack or defend Orchard Farm? I decided to pick the Defend Orchard Farm quest because I felt like it would be easier to bottleneck the enemies. I then spent the experience that I'd earned to increase my health before heading towards Greatwood. For now at least, there's quite a lot of wasps in Greatwood. As my character levels up, the enemies will get stronger, and so I decided to take this opportunity to clear out all the wasps in Greatwood. I could then leave the area and come back, and the wasps would have respawned. By doing this a few times, I was able to gain quite a lot of experience very quickly. I then teleported back to the guild and spent the experience to once again increase my physique, making my melee attacks even stronger. I then decided that I would probably need a better weapon, so I teleported to Bowerstone, realised that it was night time and so would have to sleep. Once it was daytime, I was able to buy a steel longsword, meaning that I could do just a little bit more damage. Once I felt I was ready, I headed off to Orchard Farm, where I met the most generic stereotype of a farmer ever. So my plan to defend Orchard Farm was simply to try and bottleneck the enemies and not let them past. By doing so, I wouldn't have to worry about trying to turn round or seeing if they were behind me. Once again, this quest was pretty straightforward because it's one of the first ones you can do. I also managed to beat Whisper into submission with relative ease. With this quest now complete, I teleported back to the guild and once again increased my physique before taking the Trader Escort quest. Heading back to Greatwood, I found that I now had bandits as well as wasps that I could farm for experience, which I did. Now it is true that I couldn't always see where my enemies were, but relying on the minimap gave me a general idea. And once I had enough experience, I teleported back to the guild, this time increasing my speed a few times.
I'm afraid this path is private. It'll cost you to get through.
Oh, there's a toll in the hole now. $10.
So I really wanted to tell this guy to go f*** himself. Unfortunately, I can only say yes to people. And I also wanted to kill these bandits, but since I couldn't target them, I couldn't fight them. However, I was able to antagonize them into attacking me once I started robbing all of their stuff. I would say that this was probably the first difficult fight that I had in the game because I was getting shot off screen by enemies that I couldn't see. Once I cleared this area, I teleported back to Bowerstone in the hopes that I could now buy a better weapon. I was able to sell my steel longsword and buy an obsidian cleaver, giving me considerable more damage. I also teleported back to the Heroes Guild where I improved my health and toughness. So by all rights, in all the time that I'd wasted farming for experience, these two traders should have been ripped to bloody shreds by now. Now I must admit that I was extremely concerned about this quest because not only do I have myself to look after, I now have 2 extra people with the choice of 3. Now I say choice, but it isn't really because I can't say no to people. I really didn't want to take this guy with me. So immediately after I bring the 3rd trader with me, what I feared was going to happen does happen. The traders begin to get attacked and I can't see what the f***'s going on. I honestly don't mind if they kill the guy with the mustache, but the other 2 have to survive. After the Darkwood camp, all of the traders got their health back, so that was pretty handy as I didn't actually have a healing spell yet. What's more, the bandits all seemed to focus on me, so things were going very well.
Starting to turn. Get away from me.
Okay, I might have spoken a little bit too soon there. I actually managed to finish him off before he did any real damage to the traders, which is really good because he will absolutely destroy them. I told the traders to wait where they were and continued on up the hill where I was accosted by my mother-in-law. So normally my game plan with trolls is to lock onto them. It makes it so much easier to dodge their attacks, but unfortunately in this case I just didn't have that luxury. I was getting knocked about like a paper bag in the wind. Eventually, after many attempts, I was able to shield myself behind a tree and then get up close and start attacking. Sure, I was still getting knocked back, and actually I don't know if this was changing the camera angle or not. And yes, I am well aware there is a technique in which you can knock the rocks the troll throws at you back at it. I've just never had the patience to try that. Eventually, I'd killed the troll and we made it through to the Barrow Fields. Once I had arrived in Oakvale, I spoke to Maze, who told me of a blind bandit seeress that was living nearby. Hopefully she would have some information in regards to the whereabouts of my sister, but first however I would have to replace my equipment. I traded in my obsidian cleaver for an obsidian greatsword. I then teleported back to the guild and increased my toughness. Teleporting back to Oakvale, I headed down towards the coast and into the clifftop path. "Your health is low, man," told me that I'd have to remain undetected in order to get through the bandit gate. This went about as well as you might expect. After the cutscene in which I'd been detected, I was able to cut down the bandits with little trouble, and then hide behind a rock and wait for more to come out. Honestly, I've never really bothered with the stealth mechanics in the Fable games, and so I have as much guile and subtlety as an atomic bomb. I then began slicing my way through anyone and everyone that got in my way. I was pretty overpowered at this point because the obsidian greatsword is really quite strong this early on. As I would open up every chest to get the bandit gear, it would change my camera angle. Now, because this is just a straight road, it doesn't really matter that much, but there are a lot of bandits to take care of. I'd say the only real issue I had here was actually finding the final chest. And because its location wasn't immediately obvious, I knew that it had to be off camera somewhere and out of sight. Eventually I did find it by pure accident, although I had actually considered googling where it was. So normally what I would do inside a Twin Blades camp is just kill everyone, or at least the guy who owns the bandit pass. Except I can't target anyone, so this isn't really possible. My only way forward is to actually pay for the bandit pass, which is 1000 gold. Inside Twin Blade's inner camp, you have to cause a distraction in order to get rid of the guards so that you can pass through to Twin Blade himself. Normally, the best way to do this is to just kill the guard who has the key to the hostages. Setting them free will cause a distraction. Unfortunately, I can't target him, so I can't kill him. I was forced to sell my resurrection vials and will potions in order to pay for the assassins to cause a distraction. Now, since I'm not using any will magic, I can deal with losing the will potions, but going against Twin Blade with one resurrection veil is not a good idea.
She said a guild puppet would come, and here you are.
Holy shit, what does this guy eat? Okay, so Twin Blade is not a normal enemy, you can't just beat him to death. See, there's a weak point on his back, and you can't really access this until he sticks his blades into the ground and gets them stuck. And this is so much easier when you can see what you're doing. I have to run round him repeatedly and hope that he sticks his blades into the ground. I also hope that I can see him do it, because if he's doing it and I don't know, I've just wasted an opportunity. After I just about killed him, someone came out to stop the fight.
"I've seen you, little brother, in a ring of sand and blood, an arena full of secrets."
Turns out that the mysterious blind bandit Cirrus was none other than my own sister. She then tried to explode me with some kind of green light. So I actually mopped up the rest of Twin Blade's guards and then the man himself, but I forgot to record it because I'm a f***ing idiot. It seems that Maze requires my help in finding an old friend of his, the archaeologist. But before I do that, however, I felt like I would need some more money, therefore I'd have to do a bit of side questing. Helping an old lady find her grandson sounds like a good start. It seems that her grandson is held up in a hob cave somewhere, and I'm going to have to go in, kill all the hobs and rescue him. Sounds simple enough, but these fights are really f***ing irritating. Hobs will attack you off camera as well as block your attacks, so swinging my weapon wildly was the only thing I could really do here. I was able to find a treasure hunter inside the Hob Cave and used him to replace the child that I was looking for as the sacrifice, because I really didn't want to fight this fairy. Of course, the issue now is I have to smash my way through the hobs without the child getting killed. It was actually really difficult because I couldn't keep an eye on him and didn't know where he was. Thankfully, because the caves are so narrow, I can't really miss any of the hobs here, everything just gets bottlenecked in place. Once I delivered the child to his dear old granny, I teleported back to the guild and started investing in magic skills, namely Slow Time, Berserk and Heal Life. There was a rock troll that appeared in Witchwood that I used as practice for knocking his attacks back at him. I'm going to need this for the arena. I spoke to a demon door who told me he would only open for me if I know his name. I do know his name, but I still have to hit the stones in the correct order. Heading inside, I met the archaeologist who seemed very grateful that I'd found him. I then teleported back to the guild and took the Trader Massacre and the Trader Rescue quests. The Trader Massacre quest was fairly simple, all I have to do is use slow time and just swing my sword wildly. I do have a few allies here, but I don't really think they do anything. As for the Trader Rescue quest, well, it's pretty much the same thing. Moving the camera doesn't really matter here. I mean, I did get killed twice during these quests, which is why I only have 3 resurrection veils now. I then teleported back to Oakvale and bought a full set of bright chainmail armor. I then teleported back to the guild, increasing my magic power, slow time and heal life spells. I then teleported to Witchwood where I was met with an army of Balverines. Now, Balverines are really quite annoying because they can knock you over. They also jump out of existence temporarily. I came across the white Balverine in Knothole Glade and smacked him around for a bit before being told that my attacks wouldn't hurt him. Turns out the white Balverine was once this woman's husband and she knows how to kill him using silver weapons. Now the thing about fighting the white Balverine is after he takes a certain amount of damage he will spawn more Balverines to help him. I combated this by completely ignoring them and just focusing on the white Balverine.
A hero of your stature deserves the glory of fighting in the arena. Your nomination should be waiting for you when you return to the guild.
Oh yeah, just like that birthday party invitation I was supposed to get that was sent in the post. I don't think I was ever invited to that. So with the white Balverine killed, my next task was to fight in the arena.
Welcome to the Witchwood Arena. A couple of basic points first. First of all,
you do not talk about Fight Club.
One of the other combatants went into the arena first, and so I decided this would be a great time to buy myself a full set of bright plate armor. Apart from the helmet, I can never find that for some reason. Okay, so now it looks like it's my turn in the arena. The first round is against the Wasp Horde. Now thankfully I am relatively overpowered against these things, and to be honest it kind of feels like I'm just swatting away midgies. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't know what midgies are? Well, midgies are these little flying insects that used to bite people before the days of the internet when people still actually played outside. Round 2 is against the hobs, and this one's actually quite difficult because I'm not in a tight confined area, which means I have hobs hitting me off screen. They also block my attacks. They can be considered a nuisance at best, but I still managed to deal with them pretty okay. I'm lying, this took ages. They suck so fucking much. It actually got to a point where I was just fighting things I couldn't see and was just swinging my sword for dear life.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the team rounds.
Ah yes, round 3 introduces Whisper into the mix, my old rival from Play School. Why did I say Play School? I'm f***ing British. Anyway, round 3 introduces the Balverines, which are possibly the most annoying enemy in the game. They like to jump around a lot, disappear completely, and otherwise knock me over wherever possible. It got so bad in fact that the crowd not only started booing, but started calling for my head on a spike.
You suck!
I was really looking forward to round 4 because it's against the undead. Now, the undead are basically made of paper. You can cut through them like they're nothing. They are also extremely slow and give you a high combat multiplier. I've genuinely seen alcoholics conduct themselves with more grace than these guys. Round 5 put me against the Black Hand gang. Lucian LeChance is going to be so pissed when he finds out what I did to these guys. The bandits are particularly annoying because most of them have bows and will shoot me off camera, and the assassins act like human Balverines jumping in and out of reality. All of this of course was completely trivialized by the trolls that were to come. Normally I like to get up close to the trolls, lock onto them and then hit them repeatedly. If they start smacking the ground I like to roll away, but because I can't lock onto them I can't actually do this. Both of the first trolls at least died extremely easily. The last 2 trolls however were extremely annoying. They kept slamming me into the wall like a bully looking for lunch money. The second one was a little more difficult because there'd be times where he wasn't in my line of view, and I got smacked into the wall a few more times before he finally went down. So the final round, but not really, was against Arachnox. Now I was genuinely scared of this thing, especially when I only have 1 health potion and 1 resurrection vial left. I also have no will potions. So there is actually a strategy to defeating Arachnox, and that is wait until it charges up its attack, and then you can move in and hit its weak spot. Now this is relatively easy to do as long as you can see it, but when it starts charging its attack and you don't know what's going on, really a different matter. I used slow time to maximize the effectiveness of my hits while he was charging his attack. And coupled with my berserk ability, this went really quite well. I was having to repeatedly run around the ring, hoping for the best, but the job got done. Then Darth Revan appeared and offered me one final challenge: kill Whisper and take all of the money. Now I don't know if it is just a glitch or maybe the crowd just hated me so much that they couldn't stop booing during the cutscene, but I couldn't hear a f***ing thing this guy was saying.
A fight to the death between the 2 heroes still standing.
What do they think they're doing? They can't do this!
Can't do what? I'm sorry, what have I missed here? This guy sounds like Batman making a ransom call. So it seems that me and Whisper are going to be forced to fight to the death. As long as I can keep her in front of me and use my slow time ability, this turned out to be pretty easy. Except there's a problem. You see, once I'm given the option to kill or spare Whisper, I realised that it was never really an option, because in order to continue the fight I have to hit her. I can't lock onto her, so I can't finish the fight. So I was forced to leave the arena with Whisper's head still on her shoulders. Upon leaving the arena, I teleported back to the guild to spend the vast amount of experience I just acquired. Then I went to Rose Cottage to meet my sister.
You did read the book I sent, didn't you?
Yeah, you know, somewhere between fighting Balverines, digging up the dead, and fighting in the arena, I kind of forgot. So my next objective is to get the archaeologist out of hot water again, because somehow Jack's agents have captured him. I kind of get the feeling that if he just got a house in Bowerstone and just lived out the rest of his days, this wouldn't happen. I mean, yes, Jack and his minions are extremely powerful, but there is absolutely no way they are going to win the war of attrition against the Bowerstone guards. So I have about 5 minutes, give or take, to rescue the archaeologist before he gets shipped off to Bargate Prison, I used the slow time spell in the hope that it would slow down the game timer as well. I think it did, and I just began cutting my way through all of the minions. I can't really see what's going on, and there's no real strategy involved. Eventually I'd cut through all of the minions before heading back to the guild and spending all of the experience I just gained. My objective now was to make it into Bargate Prison. In order to do this I would have to head through Lichfield Graveyard. Now this is easier said than done because the door I need to get through is sealed, and the only man that can open it died hundreds of years ago. Not to worry however, because after speaking to the dead man himself, he informed me that he would indeed open the way for me if I returned all of his items. I'd say truthfully the only issue I had here was the fishing section, because you have to click the mouse in order to actually fish. My way around this was to swap the controls over to the Xbox pad, at which point it would allow me to press A to fish. Once I'd got the item that I needed, I swapped back to the mouse and keyboard. Well, just the keyboard. Once I'd returned Nostro's equipment to him, he opened the Old Kingdom gate and I made it through to the next area where I would have to smash my way through some undead. I pretty much did my best to ignore as much as I could. However, there is one undead right at the end that I would have to kill. I also easily smashed my way through the undead in the circle of the dead because I am very overpowered. After completing this quest, the door to Bargate Prison was now open. I didn't have any trouble getting through here. There was the occasional guard, but like I say, I'm very overpowered by this point.
Wait, I know you. No, it's a trick. You're not my son. The bastard's playing with my head.
I'm not sure how my mother recognises me, seeing as I haven't seen her since I was a child, and I'm wearing a full set of armour. This includes a helmet that covers my face. I attempted to lead my mother out of Bargate Prison, but was accosted by an extra from Eyes Wide Shut. Have you seen that film? It's really f***ing weird. I still don't understand the plot. So now I've been thrown in jail, and I'm guessing this is where my Elder Scrolls story begins. Now, I'd been dreading this section since I thought of this challenge for one simple reason. You see, I'm forced to race against other prisoners. Normally this race is extremely easy because you're faster than everyone and you can see where you're going. But since I can't see where I'm going, this meant that I was having to go slower, kind of running into things, and I also had another prisoner keeping up with me. I got extremely lucky to win this, given my shoddy performance. In fact, I think I only won by about a centimetre. My prize was to listen to the warden recite poetry, and I decided that I would rather spend another year in the torture chamber. After winning the race for a second year, I was able to steal the warden's key, at which point I released all of the prisoners so that I could use them as cannon fodder to help me escape.
Die for me. Die for me.
Once I'd recovered my equipment, I grabbed my mother and was almost out of Bargate Prison when I got attacked by what I think is a kraken. Normally, by this point, this fight is extremely easy, but under these circumstances, it required careful planning and timing. You see, I would have to wait for the kraken to strike with one of his tentacles hitting the floor, at which point I could run back and hit it. The problem with this is that I can't always see when this happens, so there was times where I was actually missing opportunities, or even getting caught by his tentacles. There was also pretty much no way of avoiding his attacks because I can't lock onto him to plan ahead for things like that. I also have to be concerned about keeping my mother alive. I mean, I do have healing magic at this point, but it's still something to think about. But once I got up close to it with my berserk ability, it really didn't stand a chance. After we'd escaped Bargate Prison, my mother tried to explode me with some green light and then sent me on my way. With the experience my mother had given me, I was able to max out my toughness as well as my heal life spell. I then headed to Hook Coast where I was greeted by a magical barrier.
That magical barrier wasn't there before. It explains what I just found in the guild.
You know, she's very lucky that I can teleport because that would have been really f***ing annoying if I had to run all the way there. Oh look, she's got herself kidnapped again. I'm not rescuing her this time. I'm not. She's been free for like 20 minutes. At this point I'm pretty convinced this is all just some kind of sick game she's playing with Jack. So the time has come at long last to stop Jack from getting the sword I found out about an hour ago. First, however, I went and bought myself a Master Greatsword as well as a lot of health and will potions. Oh no, these aren't for Jack, believe me, there's someone a lot harder to fight before that. So as it turns out, Maze has been working for Jack the entire time. Not only that, but he's just helped Jack receive the Septimal Key, I think it's called. Septimal Key? Septimal? What the f*** is a Septimal and why does it require a key? Questions for later. Now I have to go and kill Maze. So in my personal opinion, Maze is actually harder than Jack. He's like if Jack took steroids and Viagra at the same time. I mean, to be totally honest, in most circumstances, just getting a hit on Maze is nearly impossible. He uses a shield as well as lightning and tends to teleport around a lot. I'm dead already. I'm sorry, what?
What the hell was that?
Okay, so attempt number 2 and I am not playing around here. I start by running away from him so I can't get caught by his lightning. I'm going to have to wait for his shield to run out. I also have to keep him in view so I know where he is. My plan here is to use Berserk and Slow Time to do the most amount of damage while I've got the window of opportunity. Thankfully there's a big yellow marker on my mini-map so I can kind of guess where he is when he disappears. And spoiler alert, he will disappear quite often. After taking a certain amount of damage, he will appear somewhere else and then I'll have to chase him down. I didn't notice if him knocking me over changed my camera angle at all. It didn't really seem significant. Also, I had banshees chasing me, but I did my best to just ignore them because Maze is the primary target. So after beating the hell out of him some more, he disappeared again, and I thought he was in the lighthouse. So I broke down the door, headed inside and found him on the stairs. We were in quite a closed off area, so swinging my sword randomly seemed to do the trick here. Heading back outside, I delivered the final blows to Maze and left him for dead in the snow.
You want to know why I did it, don't you?
Not really, no.
For some of us, the only quest, is to escape death. Whatever the cost. And it looks like I failed.
Okay, I'm sorry, I've got no sympathy for you. You live in a world where resurrection vials are a thing. I've died multiple times. So now I have to chase Jack around Albion in order to stop him from claiming the Sword of Aeons. But he does get it anyway after killing our mother. But to be totally honest, I'm not really anticipating Jack to be much of a challenge. First, however, I have to take out all of his minions. That will drop his shield and allow me to attack him. I also thought the camera angle might auto-center on Jack, but as it turns out it doesn't. I used Slow Time and Berserk to ensure that I could hit him and get the maximum amount of damage possible. Once he flew up into the air and started using a strange light ability that does insane amounts of damage, I realised that I wouldn't be able to beat him this way, because I couldn't hit him or get near him. I did try using my bow, but I was relying on nothing more than sheer luck as I can't really aim. And after he took my last resurrection vial, I realised that it was pretty much game over. So I reloaded and invested some experience points in accuracy as well as multi-arrow. This time when he flew up into the air, I would actually hide when he used his light attack, and then I could pop out using Slow Time and multi-arrow. Now truthfully, I don't know if multi-arrow is auto-homing or if I was just very lucky, but I seemed to be hitting him. He gave as good as he got and I couldn't always avoid his light attack. I really wish I knew what that attack was. Now I do believe that multi-arrow might in fact be auto-aim because once he spawned some minions, I seem to be shooting them instead. So I had to smash through the rest of the minions before taking my final shot and finishing Jack off for good. Now for a moral dilemma. Do I keep the sword and kill my sister, or do I toss it into the fire?
Strike me down now with the Sword of Aeons.
I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
So unfortunately I'm going to have to let her live as I have no way of killing her. I did want the Sword of Aeons, but there are alternatives. Fast forward 1 year and it seems that Albion is once again in trouble. We've received a message from a hero called Scythe in the Northern Wastes. In order to get there, I would have to solve a short puzzle releasing the Fireheart. I then claimed Avos Tear because it's basically the same as the Sword of Aeons. I then travelled to the top of the lighthouse in Hook Coast, which is really disorientating when the camera doesn't move. After placing the Fireheart in Hook Coast, there was a little cutscene that put me at the edge of the bay, where I would now have to deal with the summoners trying to destroy the Fireheart. These things are particularly annoying, but they don't move around at all, so they're pretty easy to take down. I pretty much tried to avoid everything I could from here on out. So originally the Lost Chapters was added content, but if you just do what you're meant to, it's actually very quick. The only requirements here are that I dig through a graveyard and find some tablets. There is some snowbalverines around that can't really be ignored, and the graveyard is full of graves from which I have to dig up. I'm pretty sure the game just makes it so it's literally the last ones that you dig up. Once I had awoken the Oracle, I needed to claim 3 hero souls, 1 from the arena, 1 from a heroine, and 1 from an old soul. So I wanted to kill Thunder, but I can't target him to start combat, so I'd have to head to the arena instead, where Jack has some enemies waiting for me. Oh yeah, Jack's still alive. Did I forget to mention that? Yeah. Now the first time I was in the arena, I didn't have a mini-map for some reason, but this time I do, so I have a general idea about where the enemies are. It was just a case of slowly grinding them down and healing quite a lot before I claimed the first soul of the arena. I then teleported back to the guild to increase my speed, accuracy, and max out my slow time spell. My next job is to take the soul of a heroine, and Briar Rose suggests that I take my mother's. However, it would be so much quicker to take hers, and for the first time in this challenge I had an idea. I attempted to shoot her with my bow without aiming to see what would actually happen. I can't believe this actually worked. Holy f***, I wish I'd known about this sooner. So the circular area in which we're fighting is blocked off, which means I'm now in a closed area to just beat the hell out of her. The difficult part about this is that she can create illusions, and I have to go around and hit them all individually, trying to work out which one is the correct one. After defeating her, the last soul I had to take was the oldest soul, and I thought it would be so much easier to just take the Guildmaster. Naturally, he wasn't going down without a fight, and I didn't seem to be able to hit him until I dealt with the guards. Now the guild woods are super irritating because the camera just seems to freak out when I'm in here. What's even more irritating is when I come to kill the Guildmaster, he gives me the option to take Nostro's soul instead. And I can't say no to people, so I've just done all that for nothing. So I head through the path of the dead, avoiding everything that I can until I reach Nostro. Nostro is willing to give up his soul, but first I have to fight for it. Now he claims at least that he cannot be damaged while his men are still standing, and I don't know if it's just a glitch or he was lying, but I did seem to be able to hit him with his men still standing. Once again, I'm in quite a confined area with all the enemies heading towards me, so this was extremely easy. So I'm very concerned about going into the final fight against Jack because now he's a dragon. He can fly around the map, use aerial attacks. Thankfully though, his AI is absolutely stupid. See, he will shoot fire from the side, but he doesn't even try to aim for me. All I really have to do is wait around for him to fly back down, at which point I can just use Berserk and slow time. Now don't get me wrong, it wasn't easy and it did take a few minutes, but eventually I finished him off and beat Fable Anniversary without moving the camera. So to be honest, I feel like this challenge was a lot easier than I originally expected it to be going into this. I'd say the biggest challenge I had with this run was just generally controlling and fighting without using a mouse. I definitely learned some new things and new mechanics about this game, but it turns out it's actually relatively simple to beat Fable Anniversary without using the camera. I think if I am to do another no camera run, it's going to have to be with a first person game because it just seems a lot harder. But I really enjoyed revisiting Fable Anniversary and I hope you guys did too. Like, subscribe and all that good stuff, leave any comments if you do have any, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.